All right, the time is now 5:32, and I'll call this meeting of the City Council's Committee of the Whole to order. My name is Jesse Letterman. I'm the president of the Springfield City Council. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Councilor Zaida Govan, Councilor Sean Curran, Councilor Tracy Whitfield, Councilor Maria Perez. I believe that is who is with us so far this evening. And we are here for our final budget hearing with our final 9 departments of the season. Prior to our budget vote. And so we'll begin this evening. TJ and Lindsay, if you have anything to share first, and then we'll go right into the employee benefits department. So TJ or Lindsay, if you have anything to open up with.
No, just Diana couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to cover the benefits budget for her. I guess it's up first now, but I'll cover that budget for her. If there's any specific questions, I can get answers for you.
Okay, TJ, how about you go ahead and we'll start with item 1, which is the employee benefits.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. The benefits budget funds 7 FTEs, and it is going up or going down, whopping $125 from FY22 for $413,359 for personal services, and the OTPS is going up $6,500 to $16,596. The benefits department administers health insurance, life insurance, flexible spending account. We're just rolling out now a purchasing power, which is to allow employees to pay using payroll deductions to buy everyday items that they might need, like kitchen or appliances and computers and other things they might need. That is set to go live in a couple of weeks. It just gives our employees another option for being able to do a big purchase without having to put it on a credit card. We thought that was important. They also administer the health insurance as well, which we were with the GIC, and that budget is funded at $27.3 million on the city side, and that covers all of the employees and the school employees, surviving spouses and retirees. And we just finished open enrollment last month, so all in all, things are going well.
Thank you, TJ. Are there any questions from councilors on employee benefits? Seeing none, we'll move to our next item, which is HR and Labor Relations. Attorney Mahoney.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about our proposed budget. Our budget is $1,250,157. Our proposed budget. That's about $27,000 less than FY22. HR is in labor relations is responsible for recruitment, application management, background checks, query checks, I-9s, onboarding, personnel file maintenance, leave management, and civil service administration. And we handle for city and schools the unemployment programs, workers' compensation programs, and the employee assistance programs, which have been critical during COVID-19. We manage the drug testing, pre-employment, random, post-accident, return to duty for our CDL operators. And we provide training for our city departments. And this can include everything from Excel training for employees that's real popular with our employees to workers' compensation management, safety programs. It might be how to handle a grievance. We do all that sorts of training. I will say it's been much more restricted during COVID. We just really haven't been getting together as groups because we didn't want to cross the different departments if we could avoid it. We conduct the labor relations for the city's 12 unions. We have 4 unions under contract right now. We're waiting for ratification confirmation on a 5th union, which I hope to have shortly. And when I do, I'll bring it to the city council for a vote. And we're in active negotiations with our other unions. We in FY23, we will have 9 employees, 8 FTEs, 2 employees in our department are part-time. Small increase in our professional services due to expected increases from a couple of our vendors. We have an increase in our unemployment administration costs. We share that cost with the school department. It was reapportioned. We really have been paying a lot less based on the total number of employees that we have, and this is just a fairer number. One of our things that we're very proud of this year is we went paperless on our onboarding process. So when someone's coming on new to the city, they're coming in and We take care of that all before they even start, just by sending all that paperwork electronically. We had a very active response to COVID from my department. We worked closely with Commissioner Colton Harris. We distributed test kits to city employees. We managed their leaves if they had either to isolate or quarantine. And we actually conducted, we assisted employees in conducting the tests themselves. So we actually had a room set aside. If someone needed help or instructions on how to do it, my staff went in and would sit with them and mask up and walk employees through the process of how to give a self-test. And that's what we have for you tonight.
Thank you, Attorney Mahoney. Are there any questions for Director Mahoney relative to the labor and HR budget? Seeing none, then we thank you, Attorney Mahoney. We will move on to our third item, which is the Law Department. And I believe Judge Payne is with us and Attorney Breck. So we will go, we'll go to them both. Judge Payne, the floor is yours.
Well, we have proposed our budget for the year. We are still trying to add staff, looking for a couple more attorneys. One that could be designated to spend considerable time with the council. And beyond that, we're looking simply for your approval of our budget request.
Thank you, Judge Payne. Did you have anything further?
No, nothing right at the moment. Attorney Breck, anything you wanted to add?
If the council has any questions for us, we have.
Sure. Are there any questions relative to the Law Department budget? Counselor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only question I have is, I think, Kathy, you sent me a email saying that you requested a half a position for the city council lawyer.
Right, yes. Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. We did put in a requisition for the Human Resources Department seeking a part-time attorney, but with benefits. So it would be a 20 or 21, I don't remember exactly which one, a week attorney to serve as the council, within the law department, to serve as counsel for city council meetings, drafting whatever ordinances or orders are needed for the city council, and perhaps also assisting us in servicing several boards and commissions within the city if they have extra time. So we're just waiting for the Personnel Review Committee to approve that.
So that lawyer isn't specifically for the city council, like if we had litigation like we had with the police commission?
No, it would not be for that. It cannot be two different law departments representing the city. So this person would be assisting you in the day-to-day operations of the council.
Okay, so TJ, how do we go about doing that? Can we put a line for consultants in the city council budget? Like, how do we go about getting a lawyer for us?
So, well, I think Judge Payne answered the question, is that having a lawyer dedicated to the council is the approach that we're recommending and have before the PRC for tomorrow's vote. And having a lawyer for the council is just not something that the administration is looking to do because we do not want to have two law departments and have the lawyers fight it out within the law department. We have one city solicitor who's the lawyer for the city, and he's the one that controls that.
Yeah, I understand that, but there are still times when the city paid for outside counsel for the mayor's litigation. So why that can't be the same for city council litigation?
Because that individual is, that outside individual is still working under the guidance of the law department. What you're proposing is to have a counsel, an attorney who would be not under the guidance of the law department and could be at odds with the position of the city, causing all sorts of conflicts of interest and potential liability for the city. And that simply is not something that is sustainable.
So when you say working against the city, we represent the city as well. So how, I mean, residents could say the same thing about the council that represents the mayor, that they're not working in the best interest of the city. We are the city too. So I'm just not really understanding what you all are saying.
The law department has to have lawyers under its control and under its direction. And if we were to open it up in a different way, we would have potential conflicts running across legal matters, and again, could open up the city to significant liability.
Have you seen that happen in other cities and towns, jurisdictions?
I don't know of other cities and towns that would that have a law department or a solicitor's office that would have any sort of situation where you have competing lawyers. And that's what, unfortunately, I understand what you're saying, Counselor, but unfortunately, it only opens up the possibility of a competitive aspect, people taking different sides, not working in the same direction. And again, the liability is simply something that I certainly could never abide for the city.
I guess we got to have this meeting, Judge Payne, because I still don't understand it. It is competing sides. and I think Councilor Letterman said it best, that that's how the judicial system works. So I don't even understand what liability, because you don't even have a case that you can say that this happened. And so I'm not understanding what liability you're talking about.
The reason I can't give you a case is because we don't have separate lawyers. Once we do, I can guarantee you we'll have cases, and it will not be on my watch.
Okay, well, there's going to be some things that's going to happen on my watch, but we'll deal with that when we cross that bridge. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. We'll go to Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, all. Solicitor Payne, Kathy, thank you for being here. I was going to ask the same question that Councilor yourself and Councilor Whitfield just asked. Let me first say that I am deeply concerned with the law department. It doesn't seem that we have a very high turnover rate in that department. I'm very concerned as to why that is. This is one of the very critical departments in the city. With that being said, all I can think of is that you cannot serve two masters. And so I think we're in a position, even if we do get a quote unquote dedicated lawyer to us, still going to report to the solicitor, which in turn reports to the mayor. And although I like to believe that we try to always work in unison, there's times in which our system is, the way the system is set up, we're going to be at odds. And sometimes the judicial has to respond. And the way we have it now, I feel like we're going to battle with one boot on and one hand tied in the back, and I don't like it. But I guess we will continue to see how that works. But I have a question for Kathy and for the solicitor, if I may. In terms of, I guess it's the difference between us getting a lawyer and the police department having a lawyer. How is that different? That question might have been asked. I might have missed it. But if you could please tell me the difference. A lawyer was being contracted out of West Springfield to advise the police department.
Well, the attorney who works at the police department is designed specifically to deal with issues that involve the superintendent, and the attorney does not work for the police department, does not handle other aspects, and deals with the superintendent and command staff, and does report to the law department when necessary on particular matters. But it's very limited, and certainly would not be engaging in anything that involved questions that required a lawyer or the legal services of the law department in representing the department and the city's interests.
Okay, Mr. President, this is one of those things that I agree with Councilor Whitfield that should continue to be discussed more in committee, because I either I'm missing something or I'm not getting the point. But let me move on, if I may, Solicitor. In terms of getting a lawyer for the police commission, because we've been meeting and they asked. I know you made some comments on public comments on the issue. When are they getting a lawyer?
Well, when we get the applicants to apply, who meet certain standards, we're advertising for solicitor positions. Right now, we have not received applications that meet the certain qualifications. As soon as we do and we can hire somebody, one of their responsibilities will be dealing with the police commission. Believe me, I just spent an hour and a half up at the police commission, and I would have rather send somebody else up there to deal with that.
Oh, I'm sure. Very well. I look forward to more robust on this discussion on this, Solicitor. And so I we'll end with this. I realize you have a watch. We too have a watch, and we're going to watch her. We're going to watch her watch accordingly, all for the betterment of the city of Springfield. With that, Solicitor, I thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. We'll go to Councilor Allen. Councilor Allen, the floor is yours, but you are muted.
Sorry, I'm driving, so I had to pull over to unmute. So I don't know what I missed. Are we in the middle of the discussion of whether the city council should have a lawyer or should have funds in the budget for a lawyer? I just came on when Councilor Davila was speaking.
Among other topics, Councilor, you are correct.
Okay, so I just have a question for, looking historically at this issue, there have been times when we the city council had different opinion than the city solicitor, police commission being another. There might have been a third one in there to do with residency or something. Not sure on that one. But there were clearly times when the city solicitor was representing a different point of view than ours. And so ostensibly that would cause you to say, well, why don't we have our own lawyer? I don't know if that's the only solution to that, but it doesn't seem to be a good situation when an elected body, the legislative body of the city, has an opinion that is not represented by legal counsel. And so I'm wondering if is there another solution in there besides having a whole budget position for a city council lawyer, that being the extreme solution, the absolute solution. It may not be practical financially or need wise, but I think historically it shows that we have had situations where we haven't had representation. And I look at the police commissioner, one we were just talking about, the school committee or the school department has a lawyer. There may be one or two others. I just really looking for an acknowledgement of what the solution would be if it's not having our own lawyer. How can a city solicitor office help us find representation for our point of view?
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Judge Payne?
Well, I think we could talk about the situation on an individual basis when that conflict arises. And maybe at that point there would be some aspect of hiring an outside attorney to provide some legal guidance. But a permanent lawyer, no, that simply is that's not sustainable.
Counselor Allen, did you have any further questions? Okay, thank you, Counselor Allen. Counselor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So to this question regarding an attorney for the city council, I know I've been hearing about it for the last few years. I understand what you're saying, Solicitor, regarding the not being able to sustain one. I'm wondering if there might be some sort of allocation to the city council for that purpose. Just in case, you know, we need to hire an attorney to represent our point of view. There could be an allocation set aside so that we could have it as needed.
I'm gonna pass that one to fiscal and to Mr. Plant, but if things came up, I think we could certainly work with and deal with those issues, but I don't make fun.
Yeah, I mean, as issues come up, we definitely will identify funds as needed to make sure that the resources are there to litigate or to reconcile or have the conversations or further investigate. We can certainly have those.
Yeah, I think that would probably, I know right now, we recently allocated, I think it was $5 million for police lawsuits, you know, so I'm wondering if, you know, there could be some sort of allocation for the city council, you know, when it comes up, because I'm sure we're not always going to agree with everyone. And when we don't, and we might need counsel, then we might have to, you know, hire a lawyer. So I think that would probably be the best solution, considering that, you know, counselor won't be designated for just the city council on a full-time basis, which makes sense to me, I think. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor Govan. Counselor Whitfield.
That's the exact question that I asked. If we could have money allocated in the city council budget for consultant fees for a lawyer in the event that we needed representation. Why did I get a no? We're not doing that.
So I think let me clarify, there's not gonna be money allocated just to have it there, but if the need arises, we will appropriate money if we all agree.
And if you guys, if the mayor's administration don't agree, then that's just it. Because it's not we all agree. If you disagree with the city council, then we just don't get the appropriation. And I think that's why it's important for us to have it in the budget, because you're never going to agree if we're going to litigation against something that the mayor, if we're going against the mayor. When will you agree to that, do you think?
The city solicitor is the attorney, and as of now, I would take my direction from the city solicitor as our lead attorney, and his recommendation right now is to have a part-time city attorney dedicated to the city council. And I think that is the direction we're heading, and that is what he has for the PRC tomorrow.
So I'm not even talking about what
I know what
Judge Payne asked for. I'm talking about the allocation in the city council budget, the resource in the city council budget. I understand what Judge Payne recommendation is for a part-time lawyer, is for the city council. I'm asking for consultation money in the city council budget that we don't have to get approval from finance or the law department in the event that there's litigation against the mayor's administration for whatever reason.
Counselor Whitfield, did you direct that to either Judge Payne or TJ?
No, because the answer is not going to change. They're not put it in there. So I'm just making a statement for the public and for the record. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor Whitfield. Are there any further questions on the law department line item? Seeing none. Just a quick question on my part, Judge Payne, how many FTEs and part-times are currently in the budget for the law department?
36 and a half.
And how many are filled?
We have 15 vacancies right now,
15 vacancies.
but we're working on it.
All are posted.
No. We're posting them as we brought a couple people into the law department. We're posting them as we figure out where we're going to be using those individuals and how we're trying to make sure that we get the people who have certain qualifications. And we have several clerical spots and dealing with a number of these different issues.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from counselors on the law department budget? Counselor Whitfield.
I have one more question, Mr. President. Have the FTE number for the law department increased or is it level? Besides the half of FTE?
Well, we've added a couple of attorneys who have come into the department from other departments here in the city in the last several months. We will have a new litigation attorney coming in a couple of weeks, and we're looking for we're looking for another third associate, and we're looking for a couple of clerical staff because we've lost a couple of people there as well.
But Counselor,
So the FTE, yes.
These are not in addition to our FTEs. They're filling the positions that are currently vacant.
So you have how many vacant positions?
Well, altogether between full-time and part-time, 15.
And I'm saying just for this budget season, have there been any other added positions besides the half of FTE? So what was last year's FTE and what's this year's that you're asking for in the budget?
I have to defer to our budget analyst on the last year's.
So last year's adopted budget at 37 general fund FTEs. This year's adopted budget has 36 and a half FTEs. A reduction of a half part-time paralegal position from last year.
Thank you, TJ.
Okay, thank you. That's the question I was asking. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Whitfield. Are there any further questions for the law department? Seeing none, thank you, Judge Payne and Solicitor Breck. We'll move now to the next item, which is the Office of Procurement.
Good evening, Mr. President, other counselors. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My name is Hope Button. I'm the relatively newly designated Deputy Procurement Officer for the city. As I'm sure some or most of you know, Lauren Stabilo, the Chief Procurement Officer, has been out for a while. So I'll do the best I can. Basically, you know, the Office of Procurement is a relatively low number of staff. We have a total of 7 full-time employees, the Chief Procurement Officer, myself, the deputy, 4 purchasing agents, and 1 assistant purchasing agent. We currently have 1 vacancy open that has been open since December, which we're trying to fill. And it looks like we're going to have another vacancy for a purchasing agent in the near future, as well as the assistant purchasing agent. Our budget request is pretty basic. I believe it's level funded from the previous fiscal year. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to offer whatever information I can.
Thank you, Deputy Officer Button. Are there any questions for the Office of Procurement relative to their budget? Say again. Counselor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Hi, Hope. Tim Allen here from REO Days. I'm just wondering, are your needs, you know, the demands on your department, are they increasing, decreasing, just in general, not relative to the budget so much? It's just, is it a busy time for procurement or is it pretty steady with how it's been?
Well, right now is a very busy time because we're closing out the fiscal year. And I'm sure Mr. Burns will can talk about that if needed, but we are understaffed right now. As I said, we've had a vacancy on a purchasing agent for well, since December. And in the very near future, we're going to be even more short-staffed because our assistant purchasing agent is moving on in about a week and a half. So it's a little difficult right now, but I'm hopeful that when we get those positions filled and replaced, that things will sort of smooth out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Hope. And we'll move to our next item, which is the information technology budget. Andy?
Thank you, Council President Lederman. You know, I do this every year. I say pretty much the same thing, and unfortunately, it's the same thing. We're kind of the glue that binds. We're the internet service provider for everybody in the city, with the exception of the schools. We connect all the departments together, hopefully, you know, with fiber as needed. Much of our scrambling as of late, as you guys know, has been due to COVID and the increased load on the infrastructure. So we've upgraded our internet. We've had to actually increase our speeds. We've changed out our hardware so that we could increase our performance and our speeds. And as a consequence of that, also to keep security, which is kind of our number one, is our number one issue that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's kind of the most important thing we deal with. Currently we are down about 3 people. We're having a very difficult time, as I think you know, hiring people. It's difficult to find talented programmers. The private sector today lets programmers work pretty much from wherever they want. They can work from home. Our requirement is that you have to be here. So, and the other thing that comes into play is the amount of money that we pay. We just can't keep up with the private sector and what they're offering at this point in time. But we're staying diligent. We keep advertising, and we're going to keep searching to try to get our developers back up and running again, our development numbers back up to where they used to be. So the budget includes some new things that we've done as a consequence of COVID, which was to change out our whole internet infrastructure. We've deployed some fiber. We've also deployed all new PCs. As a consequence of that, we've also changed and upgraded all of our Office platform to Office 365. This was done primarily to keep us current. So basically it allows us to budget a straight line as opposed to having to come to you every 3-4 years and say, hi, I need $250,000 to upgrade Office to the next version. So it basically allows finance to have a more level fund year over year. It allows us to come to you and say, listen, where there's going to be no speed bumps, so we're going to try to keep the speed bumps to a minimum. So much of what we've done in infrastructure wise has been dictated by working from home. Obviously Zoom and teleconferencing has been a huge issue. So that's kind of where we've gone, where we've devoted most of our time this year, to kind of keep things humming along with the additional load that's being placed upon our infrastructure.
Thank you, Director Doty. Did you have anything further?
I'm good.
That being said, are there any questions for the IT department relative to their fiscal year 23 budget? Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Just one quick question with the retirement of Bob Maggi. Is there some shared, his replacement, Bobby Houghton, I'm not sure I'm saying the last name right, from DPW. Could you just talk about how that is working? That cross fertilization.
So I'm quite sure that Chris Signoli probably wants to push me down an open elevator shaft at this point in time. But we went out and looked for a deputy. Bob has had a long-standing relationship with this department. We've been working together for 20 plus years. He understands the ins and outs. He applied, and we selected him. So Bob Maggi remains on as needed once a week to kind of finish up some contractual things and some contract negotiations and some large implementations. And then, Bob Holton will be taking on the day-to-day responsibility as my deputy.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Does that conclude your question?
Yeah.
Are there any further questions for the IT department? Seeing none, thank you so much to Andy and your team. And we'll go to our next department, which is the Board of Assessors.
Hi, good evening. Yes, my name is Patrick Greenhall, Chairman of the Board of Assessors, and I'm here to present our budget for fiscal 23. We did have some increases that were proposed for this year. First would be for personal services, and we did have an increase in a position for fiscal 23 from fiscal 22. The other part of the increase, of course, we had an increase in the union wages. The other substantial part of our increase would be for professional services. And some of these programs are designed to bring our department to more current sort of standards. And also it is a certification year for the assessors in Springfield. And this just happens once every 5 years. We do have to meet legal standards to determine full and fair cash value. Those same standards occur every single year, but it's once every 5 years where we go through a very formal process where we're actually certified from the Department of Revenue. I just want to talk about some of the other professional services programs that I'm just kind of super excited about, and I would love to be able to implement this year. One of them is called Just Appraise, and it's going to allow us to, instead of printing the deeds and researching them, it's a software program where we can scan them in, or actually just sort of move a PDF, and the software program will read the deeds. It'll print all of the necessary information, and we can automatically add it to our record keeping system, which is called IAS. Another one of the programs is called NearMap, and this is a photography system where we would get current, up-to-date images of all of the parcels in the city of Springfield. This is a Department of Revenue requirement to have updated, accurate pictures of all houses. And we do a flyover in the city once every 5 years, but this is a much better system, and it would be updated actually once every 6 months. Another significant increase would be in personal property valuation work. And we have a requirement where we are supposed to inspect every single personal property account in the city of Springfield once every 5 years. We are a little behind on that, partly because of COVID. And this would sort of put us back on track with the Department of Revenue, but then also allow us to do a substantial amount of field discovery work. So we're picking up new accounts and deleting and closing the accounts that are no longer in business. Another one is simply for appellate tax board work. The council voted a transfer of money earlier this week, and part of that was because of the appellate tax board work, particularly for Eversource, just kind of was a little on the expensive side for our budget, clearly well worth every single cent. And again, it's just sort of certification work in general that we're requesting an increase in the budget this year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions for Chairman Greenhall on the Board of Assessors budget? Councilor Allen. Councilor Allen, you are recognized, but you are muted.
Just wanted to point out that Patrick Greenhall presented at the Outer Belt Civic Association last night, did a great job. So if any other civic associations are interested in a presentation on assessing and the tax process, he's ready to go. That's my marketing for you, Patrick.
Thank you. And I am happy to do that. So if anyone would like to reach out, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Any further questions for the Board of Assessors? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we'll move
Thank you.
to our next department, which is the Comptroller. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. Patrick Burns, City Comptroller. The FY '23 budget includes funding for 8 FTEs, which is consistent with fiscal year '22. We have a slight increase in our rental of office equipment line item. We recently entered into a new lease agreement, and there's approximately a $47 increase in our yearly payment. The other line items are level funded, basically for training for dues and membership with the Mass Municipal Auditors and Accountant Association. And then the printing and binding and the postage is for 1099 forms. And the travel supports training that is part of the Mass Municipal Accountants and Auditors Association yearly training at the University of Massachusetts.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Pat relative to the Comptroller's budget? Say again. Seeing none. Mr. Burns, thank you so much. And we'll move to our next department, which is the Treasurer Collector, Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, President Lederman. Chris Caputo, I'm the Collector Treasurer for the city. I'll start first with the collector's budget. It's level funded, 7 FTEs, slight salary increase for all my employees for the cost of living for the union agreement, as well as my non-bargainings. Everything else is exactly the same as last year. For the treasurer's budget, level funded again. Actually, it's a slight decrease. Our land court cases and our tax titles are actually at lows. Right now, we only have 101 active land court cases. We only have 638 tax titles parcels in the entire city, which is a historic low. And to put it in a point of reference for you, we completed the 2019 tax taking, which we perfect the lien and actually record the lien at the Registry of Deeds for fiscal 2019. It was under 160 parcels that were liened in that process. I talked to my assistant collector, and he said in his entire time being the assistant collector, it had never been that low. So that's pretty much the big highlights for my department for this past fiscal. Open to any questions if anybody has anything.
Thank you, Treasurer Caputo. Are there any questions for Chris on the Treasurer Collector budget? Councilor Fenton.
Thanks, Mr. President. Chris, do you print the bills in-house for property taxes, trash fee, etc.?
No, those are printed by our deputy collector. It's actually no cost out of pocket to us for them to print them, stuff them, and mail them. There's a fee once we go to first notice that is it's $22 in total. Per the statute, it's 12 for them, 10 for us, but because they do all of our printing, mailing, stuffing, postage for all of our bills, we let them keep that extra $10 fee.
So outside of that extra
Councilor Fenton, we lost you there. Councilor Fenton, can you hear me?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, but
Yeah,
we
sorry about that.
missed the whole second part of your question.
The deputy collector that's outsourced.
Councilor Fenton, I'm sorry, we lost you again.
I apologize. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Can you?
Yeah,
We can hear you now.
Okay. So Chris, what I was saying is, other than the demand fee that they get a cut of, how much do we pay the deputy collector, which is outsourced?
our deputy collector, which we are statutorily obliged to have. I'd have to look it up because it's technically not out of pocket. They make their money off the fees, off the bills, which basically they collect the taxes that are at, that are past demand. So it's warrant, service, and marked if they're on, if it's an excise bill. And then they turn over everything to us for principal, interest. And actually, if they collect the mark fee, we also get that. They only keep the service and warrant fee. So if no bills went to warrant, our deputy collector would be paid zero.
I see. And it's statutorily required, but it's not statutorily required that they be outsourced. The only reason I ask is because I remember years ago, we took a look at this and about bringing the printing and that service in-house. I'm not saying it makes any sense. You're in a better position to know that than we are, but maybe this year it's just time to refresh it and take a look at it. Cause I know it was over 5 years ago, but we had a discussion around the same time that we were talking about the fact that we were doing our W-2 and tax form printing for employees in-house. That we talked about having the capacity to potentially do that with some additional resources in your department. So no rush on it, I think. But at some point this year, I think it would be great if we got some type of analysis looking at what we're getting in terms of bang for our buck, and if you think there's a better alternative.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Treasurer Caputo, did you want to respond to that at all?
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna do some quick math. So
Carry the
if
one.
we were to do
Carry the one.
printing, if we were to do the printing and mailing in-house, we do about 40,000 tax bills every quarter, about 4,000 personal property tax bills every quarter, and 250,000 excise bills every year. So postage right now is 58,000. So just on postage alone, we're just under $250,000 that we would have to spend out of pocket that we do not currently have to.
Right, but that means that we're paying them more than $250,000 in the fees that they're collecting a portion of on our behalf. So I'm not saying the math adds up. I just think it's worth, a 1-page exercise, maybe 2 pages, looking at how much they get as a percentage that we could retain if we otherwise did it in-house. That's all.
Yeah, we could look at it.
All
I
right,
can do a study for it and get back to you if you want.
that's fine. It doesn't have to be before the budget. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Treasurer Caputo, I admire your tenacity in studying it immediately on the budget hearing. Are there any further questions for Treasurer Caputo? Seeing none, thank you, Chris. And we will move to our last but certainly not least, one of our very valued departments, the Office of the Internal Auditor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Young No, Director of Internal Audit. My FY23 budget request is consistent with last year. It's level funded. It funds 3 full-time employees. Our OTPS is mostly comprised of external audit fees. Those consist of the financial statement audit by Powers and Sullivan, which is non-discretionary. Besides that, we're pretty much consistent every year with the types of expenses that we incur. It's usually training that makes up a very small portion of other OTPS. With that, I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Auditor No. Are there any questions for the auditor? Say again, any questions for the auditor on the FY23 budget? Seeing none, Auditor, thank you so much for being here and for you and your department's important work.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the conclusion. That was our final department in terms of our budget hearings. For those of you that are with us still, and for those watching at home, I just want to go over what our process will look like from here. So we've scheduled a series of meetings to consider the budget for a vote. The first meeting that we have scheduled is June 14th at 5:30 p.m. If we are not able to reach a resolution at the June 14th meeting, we will meet again on June 15th. And if we are not able to reach a resolution on June 15th, we will meet again on June 21st. I've also asked our staff in the City Council office to schedule a 5:00 p.m. Public speak out on June 14th for any members of the public that might like to comment on the budget prior to the first vote meeting on June 14th. Did not see that posted yet, but I expect it will be posted in the morning. And all of these meetings will be virtual. TJ or Lindsay, do you have anything you'd like to share before we close?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for their attention and asking their questions, and look forward to a vote on Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody. And if there's nothing further, then the committee of the whole will now stand adjourned.